Earlier today, the City of Toronto experienced an unprecedented and senseless attack by a group of criminals whose only cause is violence and vandalism. The Toronto Police Service and all of our partners in the Integrated Security Unit have demonstrated a commitment to facilitate lawful, peaceful protest. We have seen many examples of this over the past week. We remain committed to democratic rights of our citizens. However, through our intelligence gathering and in our preparations for the security of the G20 summit, we have been aware and have made many public statements concerning several groups of anarchists who are dedicated not to lawful peaceful protest, but to violence and vandalism. These criminals attach themselves to legitimate protests for the sole purpose of engaging in acts of violence and destruction. They deliberately provoke violent confrontation to draw the naive and the curious into their mob mentality. They use the numbers of a mob to avoid detection. We saw this tactic, often called a black box tactic, demonstrated in all its mindless violence and destruction today. The primary responsibility of the police forces amassed in Toronto for the G20 summit is to protect the perimeter of the security site. This has been done today. The tactic of criminal destruction of property was intended quite clearly to draw the police resources away from that responsibility on the summit perimeter and into the northern part of our city. I am profoundly disappointed in the criminal acts which have taken place. We have seen windows broken and police cars burned. It is very regrettable that such vandalism and violence could not be prevented, but I want to assure you that the persons responsible will be held accountable. We know many of the members of these groups. Over the past several days, we have apprehended many of their leaders. Tonight, we began removing members of the mob from our streets, and so far tonight, 75 persons have been taken into custody. These arrests will continue as is necessary. Those responsible for acts of vandalism will be held accountable. We know who many of them are, and we have photographs of many others. The people of Toronto can be assured of our commitment to the safety of our city and of our citizens. They can also be assured that we will maintain the security of the summit as we have committed to do. In order to restore calm in our streets and to preserve public safety, we require and are asking for the public's help. These criminals rely on the anonymity of hiding within a larger group of the curious and the naive. If you do not wish to be involved with the police, please leave the area when asked to do so. I ask all of the citizens of Toronto for their patience and for their support. We are working hard to maintain order and to restore the rule of law. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank my officers and all of the police services who have worked tirelessly today. They have been pelted with rocks and bottles, they have been spit upon, and they have been assaulted. But they have not wavered in their dedication to duty. They deserve your respect, and they will always have mine. Thank you very much. That's my statement. I can spend a few minutes with you to answer your questions, but I must also advise you it's a busy night, and I've got to get back to work. Sean.
Chief, it's Sean Mallon from Global Television, Chief. A couple of points. We're hearing that the free speech zone in North Queen's Park has been or is in the process of being forcibly cleared. Can you confirm that, and could you perhaps explain why? Second part of the question, we're also hearing about tear gas and these plastic riot control bullets being used despite earlier denials. Can you confirm that, and can you speak about the tactics used by police?
Yes, I can. First of all, we had not declared any particular area of the city a free speech zone, and as a matter of fact, I've made rather public statements that Canada is a free speech zone. However, there are limits to free speech, and those limits really end when it infringes on the safety and the rights of others. Many members of this mob, people who were involved in the black bloc tactics, were observed by the police going back to Queen's Park to change from the black garments in which they were hiding and changed into other street clothes. The police attended at that area, and we have apprehended a number of those individuals. There is no sanctuary from responsibility and accountability for their criminal acts. In order to disperse the crowds that gathered, tear gas was used today for the first time. It was used after a warning was given to the public about its impending use. there, to the best of my knowledge, has been no use of other use of force options like rubber bullets. I'm aware that that's been twittered by a number of people, but that, like much of the information being put out by these anarchists, is misinformation in order to mislead the public and the media.
With respect, Chief, I got an email from a political operative with a picture of one of these bullets on the street. So could it be that they're being used without your knowledge? No, I would be advised if those devices were being used. I have been at headquarters all day, and I have been in contact with the incident commanders. The use of those devices. Now, I'm aware that those devices are deployed on the street, but I have not been advised that any such device has been fired at any individual. And I left headquarters about 40 minutes ago to come to attend here to speak to you, but up until the time I left there, I had not been advised of that. Any injuries among your people? Yeah, I've had a number of my people who have been struck with various objects that have been thrown at them, rocks, bricks, bottles. They've been assaulted over the course of the day, but we have not had anyone with sufficiently serious injury that they have left the line. They're continuing to work.
Chief Blair, Evan Solomon, CBC News. Some suggestions that the police were slow to respond to some of the protesters. They lit some cars on fire, wondering why there was a delay in some response. Did the police at any time lose control over certain areas, then have to reclaim control?
Well, absolutely, Evan. We had a very, very large group of people that were engaged in, first of all, a lawful, peaceful protest, mostly members of our labor movement going across Queen Street. But a large segment of that protest were not, in fact, members of a lawful, peaceful protest. They were part of a mob, and they engaged in what we refer to as black box tactics of violence and destruction. They attempted to penetrate the perimeter of our security down towards the summit site, and when they were stopped there, they broke into several groups, and some of them moved up north into our city, along Queen Street, over to Yonge Street and north on Queen. And it did take us some time to move our resources because, frankly, these are tactics employed by this particular group to draw public order police resources away from the perimeter so that they might affect their greater purpose of penetrating that perimeter. And so it did take some time to move police resources up there, and unfortunately that's when much of the destruction, some windows were broken along Queen Street West and up Yonge Street as far as Carlton Street.
Last question. Do you expect anything tonight? Now, darkness falling. What do you expect? You said you've apprehended some of the leaders. Do you expect the action to continue into the night? Yeah,
I'm very strongly of the belief that members of this group will continue to engage in criminal acts and to attempt to continue to probe the security of the summit site. We will maintain that security, and we are now actively pursuing those individuals who've been involved in criminality today. One of the great challenges that we are facing tonight is again, our streets are also filled with people who are not intent on criminality, but they are the curious, and they are all sort of mobbed in and around these guys, and it frankly gives the opportunity to the anarchists and those engaged in criminality to avoid detection, and it has become a bit of a challenge for our officers. But we have been communicating with those crowds, and we are asking people to disperse from those areas so that we might be able to restore order. While we are doing this, the police remain committed to the rule of law, and we are endeavoring to respect the rights of all of our citizens of lawful, peaceful assembly while dealing with criminals who are smashing windows and assaulting people and burning cars.
Toronto Star.
Yes, David?
Yeah, can you tell me, can you clarify the 75 members? Is that total people arrested, or are those people who are leaders of black bloc type groups?
No, that's 75 people who have been apprehended this evening. I do not have the particulars of any charges they may face. We've gone up into those areas. We've asked people to leave. We've issued various warnings to the crowd, and there are individuals in that crowd who have been engaged in violent protest, and they are being apprehended as we speak. And before I came here, the number that I was given was 75 persons this evening who have been apprehended and are now in our processing center.
And where was the tear gas deployed, and what prompted it, considering there was all sorts of things happening across the city? Why that particular place?
It was deployed, as I understand it, in the area, I believe, of Queen and Peter, and it was because there was a very large group there engaged in acts of destruction at that site. The police on scene believed that group was now, frankly, beginning to riot rather tumultuously, and the tear gas was deployed after a warning in an effort to disperse that crowd.
And Evan asked about tonight. Is tomorrow expected to be calm? A lot of people said Saturday's the day.
Well, Saturday certainly has proven to be a difficult day, but I do not believe that the individuals bent on vandalism and violence in our city are finished with their intent. And so we will remain vigilant. We'll be out on the streets all night and all day tomorrow in sufficient numbers to deal with these individuals. It remains a challenge to us, but we're working very hard on it. And frankly, I got a lot of people out there, and none of them are going home. We've got work to do.
Just one more number question. How many police cars burned?
I witnessed 2, but I understand 3 of them have been are basically write-offs. I don't know whether all 3 of those cars were fired, but 2 of them definitely were.